Hi everyone, it's Rachel from Don't Crop Me Now. I've been away again, a lovely holiday, a brilliant chance to see my mum and family friends, and we've been to Wales for the week. I am not back in work until tomorrow, so I've decided to come and have a really good look around the allotment and make some decisions for planning for over autumn and winter and prioritising which jobs we should really get done. We're going to start in our summer house, having a look at this planning board. Now, Anthony really is not a fan of to-do lists, particularly when I write his name next to various tasks. However, I find it really important to have a look at what you really need to focus on in the short, medium and long term to ensure that you get those jobs done at the right time. So what I tend to do is look at what I need to do today or the time that I'm at the plot, what I need to do over the next month or so, and then I have longer term jobs. So on here I've got longer term for winter and spring. So if we take a look at the board, you can see right in the middle there are some jobs for today. I may not get those done and I may have to do some of those at the weekend. It's just the weather isn't forecast to be that good over the next week, so I'm going to try and do as much as I can whilst the sun is out. But I've also got some jobs for the next couple of months. So we've got October and November on there, some longer term plans for the winter and longer term plans for the spring. So what I'm going to do is to focus on these longer term plans and show you how I prioritise getting the plot all ready for next year. So let's start with these jobs that I'm going to focus on during October. The first one from the list is sorting out manure. So on our ground, we used to get an organised site delivery of manure, but unfortunately on the last couple of years it's fallen through. So I'm going to organise my own delivery, but obviously I need somewhere really sturdy to store it. So we put together this manure bay. It's going to be a little bit of work for insulating this, and then I need to organise the manure delivery itself and get it moved quickly, ideally within a few hours, into these bays so it doesn't cause any obstruction for any other plot holders. The next job is to sort out our strawberry beds. A few weeks ago we started tackling this task and we cleared out this strawberry bed. We've made it slightly smaller than it was, and we put a fence in behind to give us a divide between our plot and the plot that is in front, and we've placed this water collection unit in the corner as well. From that bed I took a load of runners from the strawberries, and they are sitting in this cold frame and also this cold frame, and we'll use those to repopulate the bed during spring. So the task I've got left to do is to clear this other strawberry bed. As you can see, it's full of quite a few perennial weeds, and what I would do is again make this one a little bit smaller and refill this bed with strawberries as well. So that's what we'll be focusing on as one of our tasks in October. And the final job that is on the October list is to put some slabs down in this area in the fruit cage and give this a really good tidy up. So we've got about 30 or 40 slabs left from the ones that we collected to do the job around the polytunnel, and we'll be using those. When we first cleared this plot, we built these recycled cold frames, which I've been really pleased with. And then this spring we put together some lids for the frames and we used EnviroMesh netting. And this did a brilliant job over the spring and summer. It was that little bit of protection, but it lets the water through and it doesn't get too hot in the same way that a glass or polythene lid would do. However, now we're coming into winter, I'm hoping to use these cold frames to store some slightly more tender plants over the winter. So therefore we need to put something on that's going to hold in a little bit more heat. So we're going to build some small frames that I've got polythene in that will clip onto the top of these EnviroMesh frames. So therefore it will be like a double layer, and then when it is too warm or in the spring we can remove the top layer and just leave the EnviroMesh on, so it will be dual purpose. At the front of every plot on our ground there are flower beds, and this is our flower bed on the front of plot 4. So as you can see, it's looking a little bit overgrown, not with weeds but certainly with perennials that are perhaps not in the correct place. So obviously we've got all those annual cosmos that are going to come out, and then it will look like there's a lot less in it. But what I'm going to do is move a few of these taller plants further to the back. So we'll certainly be moving this And these ones, which I'm not sure what they're called, someone could probably tell me, there's 2 of them. I'm going to move them to that back section, and that Montbretia there, which to be honest is a pain in the bum. I got a lot out last year. So this middle section, I'm going to take all of that out and put those taller plants at the back in the middle, and then all of the smaller perennials that are within this front section can take off a little bit better. For example, we've got some there. So now let's have a look at some of the longer term winter type jobs. So as you can see here, there are some signs that are used to mark veg. If I have a look, some of them are still in. So these ones here have just been used as markers for rows, really, for the garlic. But throughout the plot, we have a lot of these signs, and to be honest, they're a bit of a lockdown project, and they've sat for 2 seasons, which is much better than I thought they were going to do. But I'm going to have a look at these and decide whether they're going to make it through another season, or I need to think about how I'm going to label the plants in the beds. We also have a number of signs in various places around the plot. For example, we've got a "Don't Crop Me Now" sign here, and at the front of each plot there is a plot number sign. So if I have a quick look round on 5B, so I've just moved it to there. So you can see some of these need a bit of repainting, and that's one of the jobs that I will do over the winter period. The wind's getting a little bit up here now, so maybe the sun isn't going to last as much as I thought and hoped it was. So if we have a look at one of our other jobs we're going to focus on. So in this area here, we have a bit of a problem of ground elder that is creeping in. So it's in these beds here, so it's like it just come underneath the communal paths, and it's a little bit in this bed and a little bit under that path and under that raised bed there. So if you have a look at ground elder, you can see where I pulled a bit out here. It's an absolute beast of a weed, and you know what, I'm just going to have to dig this area out. I don't see there's any other way, even though this plot has been an established no dig plot for quite some time, that I can deal with this ground elder. I just need to get it out. So I had put this frame in because we were going to use this as another manure storage area, but until I've got that ground elder out, I do not want ground elder growing through my manure. So I will remove that, remove this bed and the paths, and just this bed here and this bed here. We can see there's a little runner of it, so I probably might need to do the edge of that one, but I think it's more underneath this path. I will dig it out and follow every single route to make sure that we get on top of that and it doesn't spread further into the beds. Once we've done that, I will put, well, you know, actually I'm not completely sure exactly what we're going to put back in this area, but some sort of beds for growing. Another job, winter job, I'm going to focus on is making a bit more progress on this flower border that's around this section here. So I realise it doesn't look brilliant at the moment, so we need to prune back a lot of those trees back to the fence. Obviously for security reasons we need a good border, so we can't chop those trees down. They also belong to the council. But underneath here I'm hoping that we can get a bit more of a flower border going. So there's quite a lot of plants in there that are just really dying back. This end is not too bad. I moved a lot of that Montbretia off my plot into that section. So what I would do is, there's some temporary edging on the beds here. I have got some recycled wooden log edging that should be able to go all the way down there, and what I'll do is clear that area out a little bit more at the end and put something in, maybe some rhubarb actually, that can be used for everybody on the ground and make it look a little bit better too. Now winter is the time to do a lot of your fruit pruning, not for everything but for most things. I'm going to have to attack this fig tree a little bit. So as you can see, between our fig tree and Neil's beans, they're starting to take over the path here. So I'm going to cut back that tree and try and fan it out to try and reduce its impact on covering this path. Another tree that we're going to have a really good go at pruning back a lot is the bramley that we've got on plot 4. Sun's popped back out again, which is good. I've decided I'm going to take out this cherry tree. If you see the trunk here, It's right next to that water butt, and it grows up and over the top of the water butt, which is not bad in itself, but it's a bit difficult to net. And I'll be honest, we never get any cherries because the birds eat them all. Wouldn't look very nice netted anyway in that position, and it creates just a bit more shade really for the polytunnel. So I'm going to take that cherry tree out this winter. And the final job that we'll probably do, ideally really over the winter, but this may tip over into spring, is a good check around our beds to see which of the wooden beds need rebuilding. So you can see here we've got a raised bed that has been re-edged last year, and particularly this middle section here, the beds have been in probably the best part of 12 plus maybe even more years, so some of them have started to fall apart a bit. So if we have a quick look over on this bed here, you can see that it's a bit rotten and it's fallen apart. So what we do is do a bit of an audit around all the beds, and the ones that are really bad we will rebuild and restructure. So now let's look at some of the projects that we will probably tackle in the spring. So the next one is the watering for our polytunnel. So we put this polytunnel up last winter, so it's had its first season now, and we have bought an automatic battery powered timer that we'll use, probably not from this container actually. I think I will attach it into the IBC which collects here. So we will send some pipes up and under into the polytunnel at probably those seat type hosing to water the beds inside. So that's going to be a spring job, because it's quite difficult to do those jobs when it's very, very cold, because plastic structures tend to not be very pliable. We did quite a lot of work last spring on what you guess you'd call the finishing touches on this summer house. A lot of it was delayed over COVID because we couldn't get hold of a lot of materials. But in the spring, I will make sure that I give this a coat every year really of the wood protector to make sure it stays looking good. And there are an odd few bits that we've got to tackle in terms of finishing off. For example, there's some edges there need finishing, and some bits on the top there as well. So we will do that in the spring. Another spring job is going to be to thin out some of these dahlia tubers. We always leave our dahlia tubers in the ground and just give them a good mulching over the top to protect them from frost. And last spring, Anthony and his friend Mark built this really good frame structure that has done really well at supporting the dahlias. However, there are some bits that are growing outside the frame structure itself. So I want to just reduce the size of those. So you can see some of those branches are sort of hanging off because the tubers themselves are too big. So what I will do, and I tend to do that in the spring, because if I start attacking it now and the water gets in over winter, then they may rot. So that's one thing we will do during the spring when it warms up a little bit. And here's just a few jobs that I haven't talked about on my list, just because they're already sorted for us, but are things that will be really helpful for you to consider over the winter. Number one is water collection. So as you can see here, we have got water coming off our shed into this water butt, and on the other side it comes off into this IBC container. We also have two other IBC containers, one coming off the polytunnel and another one here that comes off the summer house. In addition, we have a number of freestanding water butts. But if you can set up collection to come off large structures over the winter, then you'll amass all that water that you're going to need in that dry period that often seems to come around now during planting times in sort of April and May. Number two is sort out any paths. So this isn't on our list because we've already tackled this task, and there are some videos on our channel about how we've managed to do this. But as you can see, around the back of the polytunnel we have laid slabs, and we have levelled this part of the path here and resown some grass seed. That's why we started it early, because we wanted to give the grass seed a chance to germinate. But this is the sort of job that I would try to tackle usually before the wet season sets in, and for us that tends to be somewhere around November. Number three, consider the layout of any of your permanent fruit trees and bushes, because winter is going to be the time when they're dormant to be able to move them. We did this last year and we moved quite a lot of these trees. So they weren't as productive as they could have been this season. So hopefully next year they will start to really get going. Number 4, if you do not have a organised composting system at your plot, it's a really good job to focus on over the winter. So you can see here, we've got some compost that is from, it's actually from not this season, but the season before, that's ready to go. And we have got another bin here that is being filled as we clear the plot. So here we tend to use a 3-bay system, and each one is probably about 4 foot by 4 foot, so they're quite large. If you don't have the space to have a very large composting system, then these black Dalek bins are very effective, and you can they're often going free on FreeCycle or Facebook Marketplace, so you don't necessarily need to buy them, but just consider how you're going to deal with all that waste next year. Number 5, have a think about any permanent structures that you want to add to your plot. For example, here at Don't Crop Me Now, over the last few years, we've done quite a lot of building. We've done this summer house, which is on the left. You might want to add a shed, like this one on the right. Or you might want to consider a greenhouse or some cold frames. So I hope that's given you a bit of an idea of some of the jobs that we are planning to complete over the autumn, winter and spring period at Don't Crop Me Now. And hopefully it's given you some inspiration for jobs that you may wish to plan to tackle. Remember, use this time wisely and you'll have a much better, productive and tidier plot next year. If you've enjoyed the video today, please like, comment and subscribe. It only takes a minute, but it really helps our channel.